Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello, welcome back, my friends. Welcome back to Kardec Radio and our Prayer for Peace program on Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Welcome to everybody, to those of you who are here with me now on demand, and to those who will listen later. Welcome, welcome. Big hello to everyone. And our message, as usual, before our prayer. Today, the message will come from the book Healing and Self-Healing. And this book is translated into English. And it is by Dr. Andrei Moreira, who is a spiritist. He's also a medical doctor, and he is a medium. He's psychographed books and has played a very big role in dissemination of Spiritism. He is the president of the Spiritist Medical Association in Minas Gerais. And this book, however, is not psychographed. This book is written by him. I'm sure he was highly inspired. And so again, the name of the book is Healing and Self-Healing. Unfortunately, even though the book is translated into English, there are no more available copies in English. So I do believe it is still available in Portuguese. So a dear friend was willing to share her copy with me. So this section that we will read out of the book is taken from chapter 10, and it is entitled Trauma and Forgiveness. And here's what he has to tell us. He says, in some situations, such as traumatic experiences, an individual is subjected to aggressive circumstances, irrespective of their conscious will. This includes victims of war, sexual and child abuse, which leave profound marks on a person. In such cases, the spiritual history of each person whose present behavior has its roots far back in the past, provides the elements of reflection to understand and accept the present trials by understanding the law of action and reaction. A person is attracted to circumstances that are consistent with the vibrational patterns of their soul and which are often unconscious. Perhaps it may be difficult to understand that there is justice in these facts, and the understanding of reincarnation helps to perceive the movements of rebalancing which are present. After a person's period of outrage has passed, and under a properly conducted therapy, their traumatic experience can be a gateway to access a deeper level of consciousness of oneself and life, in an expansion of values, strengthening of convictions, and fruitful learning for the spiritual, immortal being that we all are. This learning could certainly happen without the need for a traumatic experience. However, there are spiritual constructions and circumstances we attract that reminds us of the words of Jesus. And then he gives us a quote by Jesus from Matthew chapter 8, verse 7. And this is what Jesus said: "For offenses must come, but woe to the man by whom the offense comes." Andrei goes on to say, "There is justice and a useful purpose even in the midst of a scandal, ignorance, and cruelty. The condition of our world being of trials and atonement, and the absurd social and economic inequalities put everyone at the mercy of aggression. The situation will last for as long as love does not reign as the norm of life and is not the personal norm of conduct when using and enjoying the things and opportunities offered to us by God. By divine concession as an encouragement for the personal growth of an individual and all those around them. Forgiveness is the acceptance of peace deep down in us and our relationships. It is the acceptance that does not represent submission, but the person's absence of anger during their journey of evolution, welcoming their human nature and that of the other, which is a key requirement for joy and happiness to return into their experiences of life. So, sounds simple, right? Let's kind of break down, what is Andrei Moreira telling us? Well, first and foremost, he's reminding us about one of the Spiritist principles, which is the plurality of lives, that we reincarnate, and there are reasons we reincarnate. And we're told in the Spirit's book, question 132, is that there are reasons why we incarnate and reincarnate. To expiate, it can be a mission, trials, and experience, because we know every expiation is a trial, but not all trials are expiations. So we should remember that. And also to do our share in the creation, because we are co-creators. And so as we reincarnate and transform ourselves, we are actually helping to transform the world that we live on, and thereby affecting the creation, right? God's creation, by transforming ourselves, raising our own vibrations. And if we're all doing that, we find ourselves in a better world. He reminds us that we are in a world of trials and atonement. So this, because we are imperfect spirits, that we are here to experience trials and expiations, to improve ourselves, to transform. And he brings up the idea of the traumatic experience. And he says, we learn by these experiences, and it's not that it's the only way we can learn. But these experiences, trauma, and he clearly states, war, all kinds of abuses, sexual, child abuse, there are many types of abuses, that these are all traumatic experiences. So we've pretty much all are traumatized. Of course, there's varying degrees. Someone who's living in a war-torn environment versus, maybe the separation of my parents, or, these traumas are on a continuum. Some are worse than others, but they're the same for everybody in terms of their effect. And he says that we can transform ourselves and find the beauty, so to speak, on the other side. He goes on to say that because of living in this world of atonement and trials, that we are all at the mercy of aggression. Not only the world of trials and atonement, but also he points out the economic inequalities, that we can see justice is not in its purest form practiced here on earth yet. And so we're all at the mercy of aggression. There's still big competition and people being driven by these temporary assets of beauty, wealth, power, youth. These are all temporary, and people can still be driven by these passions. So we're all at this mercy of this aggression. So he talks about this transformation that can happen as a result of, finding ourselves in a traumatic situation. And, what we can be reminded of is St. Augustine's recommendation for self-examination. This can be helpful. And Andrei is, he is careful to say that after a person's period of outrage has passed, so if we find ourselves in a traumatic experience and we're outraged, this is a common reaction. And he says, and under a properly conducted therapy, so, we may need professional help. He says the traumatic experience can be a gateway to accessing deeper levels of consciousness. And so St. Augustine tells us about the self-exam, and that's in the Spirit's book, question 919. But also Louise Hay, in her book, You Can Heal Yourself, she says we can ask ourselves 3 questions. Is why do I have this now is the first question. And these are personal. So it's not that we need to, share these necessarily, but it's that heart-to-heart conversation with ourselves. Is why do I have this now? Why am I in the middle of this traumatic experience? The second question is, what am I to learn from this? Is to be open to the learning of it. And the third question is, do I need to do something? Do I need to change something? And I think these are very healthy questions because they help us to self-reflect, because we know when we're in a traumatic experience, it's very natural and easy to start naming and pointing the finger and blaming people. And, this is why Andrei opens this section reminding us about the plurality of lives and reincarnation. And many of these behaviors and experiences, he says, are rooted in our deep past, and we don't have the memory. So when we know this and can understand this better, the law of reincarnation, the law of action and reaction, it helps us. It is comforting and consoling. And then we're more willing to say, okay, let me take a look. So I don't need to stay in this victim role, that I can perhaps help myself. And he's, thank you, Andrei, for reminding us it's okay for us to seek professional help or help from others to do this. This is not something we do alone or have to do alone. And so he just reminds us that there is justice and useful purpose, even in the midst of scandal, ignorance, and cruelty. And we will also remember from our Spiritist literature in the Gospel according to Spiritism in chapter 3, number 11, Kardec, helps us to understand and interprets for us the necessary evil, that the evil on this world, because we are imperfect spirits and we are on a world currently, it's in its transformation, but we have not yet arrived, that there is this necessary evil. And why? They say to help us sense good, that contrasts are necessary. We're still learning in this phase of duality, of knowing black and white, good and bad, right and wrong. And so, Andrei explains to us, so there is justice in this necessary evil, so to speak, this cruelty maybe that we experience, or scandals. It is in helping us there yet again to transform and better to look at ourselves. So then, he, leads us into this direction of, and how is this all going to change? Is he talks about love, and we know that love is synonymous with charity, and charity being represented by benevolence, goodwill towards all indiscriminately, not just the people we love or our blood ties. Also indulgence, which is overlooking the imperfections of others, and then forgiveness, forgiving others' imperfections or offenses. And this is why Jesus told us we need to forgive every day. When he said 70 times 7, that means daily, forever, ongoing, for a long time. So this forgiveness is the acceptance of peace that's deep down in us in our relationships. And Andrei reminds us that this forgiveness, it's not about being submissive. It's not about being a punching bag for somebody or a doormat. No, it's about acceptance. And he talks about it being active acceptance. And we can understand this as related to resignation. And we understand, as we learn in the gospel, that resignation is that consent from the heart, where obedience is consent from reason, from our mind, intellect, our discernment. So this act of acceptance, what is this? It's resignation, but it's not submission. It is acceptance without rebelliousness. Like, oh, well, I guess I have to forgive him, or gotta tolerate him, or, I'm not really sorry, but I know I'm supposed to say I'm sorry. This is not it. It's this deep sense of humility, being able to see ourselves, take responsibility for our wrongs, and leaving it at that instead of looking at the speck in our brother's eye where we have a huge plank hanging out of ours. So it really is keeping the focus on ourselves. And he says, as we do this, as we practice forgiveness, that we will see joy and happiness return to our lives. And rightly so, right? Because the spirits tell us in chapter 5 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, blessed are the afflicted, that on earth, because we're still yet in this earth that's in a phase of expiation and trials, that we don't really experience absolute happiness here, but we can experience a relative happiness, which is having a clear conscience. So forgiveness helps to bring us to clearing up our conscience. And Jesus told us in the Lord's Prayer that we are, as we forgive others, we are forgiven. So we raise our vibrations in forgiving other people, so we allow our own selves to be forgiven. So it's a very good message. It reminds us that we don't need to be stuck. We don't need to hold on to our wounds, that we can transform them. And this is pretty much the point of them to begin with, if we study and better understand reincarnation, the law of action and reaction. And there's so many books in Spiritism that help us to understand them. I think Andrei series, the Andrei Louis series books are excellent in helping us to better understand the law of action and reaction. There's even a book entitled Action and Reaction. Okay, so I think it's time now for a prayer for peace. So I ask you to close your eyes if you can and join me in this prayer. Divine Creator, Blessed Mother, we come to this now moment with deep respect and humility, in recognizing all the many blessings that have been showered upon us day in and day out. And in this recognition, we remember our brothers and sisters who are suffering perhaps more than ourselves. We think of those brothers and sisters that we do not know, maybe we don't share a culture with, but we recognize the trials and hardships of being in areas that are filled with war and discord, prejudices of all sorts, discriminations. And we fill our hearts with gratitude in knowing that there is divine order in all your creation. And with our trust and faith, we overlook the chaos, the misunderstandings, the seemingly destruction that surrounds us. And we pray that we may be continued and guided, inspired in doing the good. We pray for our brothers and sisters who suffer emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. We pray that they may decide a different mindset in coming to see trials and sufferings as an opportunity for growth, for transformation, for purification, for coming to recognize higher values, respect, and honor of your divine love that not only saturates this earth, but is ready, available as we choose it. And we are ever so grateful for the Spiritist doctrine that helps us to navigate this world, provides us with a foundation that is unshakable. Helping us to better use our reason, our discernment, letting go of superstition, magical thinking, and dogma. We thank all the spirits that guide and protect this platform, this prayer program. And with deep humility, we humbly ask permission to close this prayer session. And so be it. Thank you, my friends, for joining me, and I hope to see you all again next week. Same time, same station, Kardec Radio, where we are always nourishing our souls. Let's remember to help somebody else this week. Thank you so much for joining. Many blessings, and have a great week.